Hello there, dear YouTubers. This is Atilla presenting for Real Turkey channel. Today we're talking about the demise of the Turkish economy. I call it death by 1,000 bites. But first of all, some of you might wonder why Mr. Yeşilada has suddenly disappeared from the YouTube for about 2 weeks. There is really no reason for conspiracy theories. It happened because Mr. Atilla Yeşilada is a technomoron. One day I punched a button and my entire technological infrastructure collapsed like the Turkish economy. And since then everything had to be reinstalled. Even today I am not quite able to put up graphics or charts simply because the new studio is artificial intelligence and I represent human stupidity. Thanks for your patience. I hope the sound and visual quality of this video will be far superior to my previous efforts, though of course the content will remain pretty miserable as usual. Well, Turkish economy. And I think what I'm going to say about the Turkish economy applies to many developing nations which are suffering from political mismanagement as well as the devastating impact of the COVID-19 outbreak. In fact, I wrote an article in Turkish which I hope to translate into English tonight. I called it "The Nuclear Winter of the World Economy." And of course, when the entire planet is covered with nuclear ash, Turkey is not going to be an exception. But let's get to the facts. I don't know if you follow Turkey at all, but you may have noticed that after a brief period of stability, Turkish currency has started its race to the bottom once again. As I shoot this video, which is Thursday sometime, it depends on where you are, the dollar TL pair was trading at about 7.93, an all-time high. But you see, currency weakness is just a symptom of a deeper malaise, and it's poor political and economic management that's sapping not only investor sentiment, but actually the confidence into the future of economic actors in Turkey. Now, by the end of July, the post-COVID-19 recovery has slowed down in Turkish economy. We have a lot of leading indicators which shows us that, like in many countries in the world, Turkish economy surged ahead very rapidly as the quarantines and lockdowns have been ended. But then, of course, the malaise of the entire planet, unemployment, and people's general, fear of going to outdoors establishments for eating, drinking, movies, shopping is killing the service sector. Turkey is not a different story. But of course, there's a difference in case of Turkey because currency is extremely weak. Now, you may live in a country where you don't have to watch the exchange rate every day because it doesn't really play a difference in your life. I mean, you trade, you shop, you save in the domestic currency of your country. And what happens to Japanese yen or, I don't know, the Australian dollar or the Canadian dollar doesn't make a difference to me. Turkey is not like that. There are 3 reasons why the level of the exchange rate and its rate of depreciation or appreciation are extremely important. First, because we import more than we export, and we are a very low value-added production country. Any depreciation of the currency immediately spills over to inflation. That is, the lower the Turkish lira, the higher the rate of inflation. And of course, inflation is a bad thing. Currently, CPI is running at an annual rate of 12%, which is really extremely rare for any country in the world, and even more seldom for a country which is facing stagnation. Secondly, and this is a problem that's common to entire emerging markets world, thanks to Fed's generosity and the generosity of the European Central Bank, who printed endless amounts of money and drove interest rates to zero, as well as loosening credit conditions, Turkish corporates have borrowed heaps in foreign currency, in dollars and euros. Now, borrowing in home currency or foreign currency is a good thing if a corporation is using the proceeds to do research and development, to upgrade its technology, and at the end, to produce more goods that can be sold in external markets. Unfortunately, that's not the case in Turkey. Most of our foreign currency loans went to either enhancing capacity for home production, for residential investments, or for what is in Turkey called mega projects. That's huge white elephant infrastructure projects. They are not necessarily completely useless, but they have such a long payback period that the foreign loans taken out to pay for these projects mature way before the project produces any kind of net revenue or social revenue, that's social benefits. So any depreciation of the currency is bad for Turkish private sector because it has revenues in Turkish lira. I'm talking about, the average company. Obviously, there are exceptions because the average Turkish company produces revenue in Turkish lira but pays interest and principal in foreign currency. So the lower the exchange rate, the higher is the share of interest expenses in its cash flow. And as these interest expenses increase, there is much less room left for employment or capital investment. And this is also killing the Turkish economy. At the end, Turkey's loss of foreign currency, and of course the currency weakness, has reached such a level that the Erdogan government has taken a series of positive steps. The central bank was allowed to raise interest rates. Turkey's banking regulator, BRSA or BDDK in Turkish, has once again allowed swap transactions between Turkish and London banks. The withholding tax, that's the advanced income tax on Turkish lira deposits, were lowered substantially, which raises the real interest rate on Turkish lira assets and makes them more attractive vis-a-vis foreign currency assets. It also increases the tendency or propensity to save, though how big that effect is always disputed among economists. And finally, a very silly transaction tax on foreign exchange and gold transactions. You go to a foreign exchange bureau when you're a foreign country, you want to exchange your currency for the currency of the foreign country, and they charge you, a fee. Here, a tax is imposed on top of that, which was 2%. In gold too. I mean, why would I pay a tax when I'm buying gold? But anyhow, that was also reduced. And these steps immediately worked out. Turkish lira stopped depreciating, and remember, the real data always comes after the real time. We have seen foreign investors returning to Turkey. I think in last week's data, they purchased about $5 million of Turkish stocks and bonds, which is good for Turkey because it's foreign currency coming in and raising the Turkish lira exchange rate and pushing down the interest rate. Then misfortune struck Turkey. Turkey's neighbors, Azerbaijan and Armenia, started one of their endless battles over an occupied territory called Nagorno-Karabakh. And Turkey and Azerbaijan are Turkish nations. They're very close to each other. Turkey has sent military aid, as well as, according to some rumors, Syrian mercenaries to aid Azerbaijan. Immediately, the world press and financial experts started claiming that Turkey will enter this war on the side of Azerbaijan. Nobody bothered to look at the map, because if they did, they would see that Turkey and Azerbaijan don't have borders. There's Armenia in between us, and quite a large territory. So you tell me, how are we going to send soldiers to Azerbaijan, even if we wanted to, and we don't want to, and Azerbaijan doesn't need our help? So that was sort of like a misperception, which was cured in a few days, and Turkish lira started appreciating once again. And then Ankara decided to shoot itself in the foot again. Three big mistakes were made. A, our health minister, Mr. Fahrettin Koca, said one day that COVID cases and COVID patients are not the same thing, and that the ministry is only collecting data on COVID patients. That is, people who are actually sick and have to be hospitalized and given professional medical care. To him, this is a case, this is a patient. A case is someone who has tested COVID-19 positive and is sent to home quarantine. He's not counted. She is not counted. This is completely contrary to the World Health Organization directives. And later it was revealed that the actual cases in Turkey, not patients, were 10 times the number of patients. So Turkey averages about 1,500 COVID patients, but in actuality there are every day 15 new thousand COVID cases. And home quarantines are not effective. These people are walking around. I mean, you can see it all over the Turkish press. Even the health minister admits it. That suddenly introduced a chill to those portions of the population which is sensitive about health or which is knowledgeable about health affairs, which means they lock themselves at home and they switch from consumption outside home to e-commerce, which is not as labor intensive as going to a shopping mall or going to a dining establishment which employs 10 waitresses and 20 staff in the kitchen. The second mistake was declaring that a tiny hamlet in the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus called Varosha, Maraş in Turkish, which is a no man's zone since the Turkish military campaign in Cyprus to save the Turkish Cypriots from ethnic slaughter by Greek Cypriots, has been under UN protection. Now, my grandfather is from Cyprus, so I strongly affiliate with the plight of Turkish Cypriots, but really, Varosha has been shut down for over 50 years now. Why now? This is what I call destructive ambiguity. I mean, if you had a good reason to open Varosha to Turkish settlement, well, you come out and state that and you discuss it with your foreign partners, or at least you try to create some empathy and understanding behind your decision. None of this happened. Just one day, Turkish government says, well, we talked to the president of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, and well, tomorrow we can go to Varosha and settle there, which of course angered Greek Cypriots, Greeks, as well as EU, which also of course lowered investor sentiment. The second mistake was even bigger. We had purchased S-400 anti-missile defense batteries from Russia, which is against NATO policies, but I couldn't care less. To me, whether we buy S-400s or Patriot systems from the United States or any other anti-missile system from anywhere else, including North Korea, is completely irrelevant, because there is no one in our neighborhood which has any intention, now or in the future, to attack Turkey with a huge wave of missiles. I mean, Russia and Iran are the only countries who have a decent missile arsenal, and Russia or Iran attacking Turkey is just so incomprehensible, even to Turks or the ultra-nationalists, that it simply won't happen. So why we spent $2.5 billion on S-400s, I don't understand. But this is an issue which is very, very annoying to the American Congress. There is a legislation called CAATSA, Fighting the Enemies of the United States Act, which allows the president to choose from a menu of sanctions to punish the countries that violate American norms. Is it fair? It's not. I couldn't care less. Right is might. This is the kind of world we live in. Turkey has bought these S-400s and warehoused them, never activated them, and suddenly 2 days ago, Turkish chiefs of military staff announced that, well, we're going to test those babies, see if they fire. Once again, as I've said, I really couldn't care less whether Turkey buys S-400s or Patriots or whatever. But why to test them now, right before the American elections, when both the sitting and soon-to-be elected American Congress, whether it has a Democratic or Republican majority, is completely antagonistic to Turkey? And if Biden is elected, he's not going to have the same good relationship between our mutual presidents, Mr. Trump and Mr. Erdogan. So this is sort of like inviting the United States to levy sanctions on Turkey. And last time United States threatened Turkey with sanctions, that was August 2018, Turkish lira collapsed like 50% in a month. So Ankara knew what would happen. And of course, immediately, the currency nosedived once again. These are huge political mistakes that are going to cost a recovery to the Turkish economy, which is already very fragile. Why? First of all, to stop the depreciation of the currency, Turkish central bank will have to raise interest rates even higher. And higher interest rates lower demand for credit, which means it also lowers demand for real estate purchases, construction, heavy machinery, orders, etc., etc., even automotives. Two, of course, foreign borrowing for Turkey is going to be extremely expensive at a time when our budget deficit as of September reached roughly 4%, 4.5% of our GDP. And the Treasury can't borrow at home because of something we call the crowding out effect, which is if you have a small financial system, banks have to make a choice between lending to the private sector and to the state. And of course, they choose the state because the state is always able to pay back, whereas, private businesses aren't. So, to the extent that a government borrows more in a shallow financial system, the private sector is crowded out, is pushed aside with a shoulder, can't get loans. And that's what's happening, and it's going to further slow down Turkish economy. And as I've said, the COVID-19 is making a second wave around the world. If you live in the United States, in UK, in Spain, and nowadays even in some parts of Germany, or in India, in Iran, you would agree with me that really the efforts up to date have not been able to get rid of this nasty virus. And the commonly accepted medical theory is that in the Northern Hemisphere, it will commingle with seasonal upper respiratory diseases like flus or bronchitis, which I suffer every year. It's going to be more difficult to detect. It's going to impose more of a burden on the immune system, and it's going to inundate an already extremely exhausted health system, which might break down. And if it breaks down, then you have longer hospitalizations for the average patient and a higher fatality rate. That is, more patients die who shouldn't have died. And that's unfortunately the solution, the future that's awaiting Turkey. Moreover, at some point you have to declare, lockdowns, shelter-at-home orders, etc., which are devastating to Turkey's services-based economy. 60% of Turkish output is produced by services, and a preponderance of these companies are extremely small, single shop, single store owner-operators who have already been deeply hurt by the COVID-19 outbreak and the general hesitancy of the public to go out and shop or dine or visit movie theaters. And they are also extremely labor intensive. They hire a majority of the workforce in Turkey. If they shut down again, which is what is going to happen, Turkey's unemployment rate, and I'm talking about broad unemployment rate, not the official unemployment rate, which is 25%, is going to get worse over the winter months. Imagine a country where, in any case, only 50% of the working age population is employed because of one reason or other. And now 1/4 of that is unemployed and is going to remain unemployed. Two problems. A, even if Turkey were a rich country, it would have been almost impossible to bankroll these people, to make welfare payments to these people. And Turkey is a poor country. Two, even if you pay these people financial aid, state support, it doesn't fully compensate for their wages, and it is not the same thing as drawing a decent wage in a steady job. So their expectations of future income is lower, so they consume less. And that's the end of the story for Turkish economy. I think Turkey really should be an example for other developing nations which are battling with COVID and slow growth in terms of what mistakes not to make and how poor economic management and political decisions which are extremely ill-advised and ill-timed can kill an economy. Turkish economy won't collapse overnight, but as these mistakes continue and as their effects are juxtaposed on top of each other and magnify over time, it will die, as the Chinese say. I suppose that's what the Chinese say. I don't speak any Chinese. We shall die by 1,000 bites. We have lost at least the next 6 months, and then hopefully there will be a recovery. Well, dear YouTubers, thanks for putting up with me for 23 minutes. I hope to study this studio, this product of artificial intelligence, and try to communicate with it to teach me how to use the graphics, charts, and animation modules so I can produce something more visual for you next time. Please stay safe and mind social distancing measures. This is Atilla for Real Turkey channel saying goodbye from a rainy Istanbul.